What's up, everybody? Welcome to BioS 3 Raw TV. Well, today we've got a little update on Shelby Houlihan, the Olympic runner that tested positive for D'Angelo. Now, some interesting things have kind of come up. And of course, if you let things go a little bit and kind of sit back and watch, sometimes things kind of unfold on their own. You don't really have to dig. And that's kind of what's happening right now. And let's start by going up here. I want to talk about this for a second. So, her coach, Jerry Schumacher, and Shane Flanagan also spoke to the press, and this is what they had to say, all right? So, over the course of the past 6 months, I've learned that more than I ever wanted to know about drug testing, the procedures, organizations that govern our sport. This is what Schumer said. What I've learned has eroded all the faith I had in their ability to fairly serve and protect clean athletes. Throughout this process, we were confident that the truth would lead to justice. What I've come to learn instead is that anti-doping authorities are okay with convicting innocent athletes so long as 9 out of 10 convictions are legitimate, and that is wrong. Our drug testing tech has become so sensitive. Hang on a second. So sensitive? So you'd rather have it less sensitive so more people can get away with this shit? See what I'm saying? Like, the coach is like, they're trying to flip it, but anyways. Labs are catching increasing numbers of clean athletes. The Athletics Integrity Unit oversees the anti-doping program for top-level international track and field athletes and applies the World Anti-Doping Code equally to athletes from all over the world. Each case is treated objectively in accordance with the WADA code provisions. After being charged by the AIU, Ms. Houlihan's case was heard by a 3-member panel at the Court of Arbitration for the Sport, CAS, which has made this decision after hearing evidence and arguments from the athletes' lawyers and the AIU. CAS has informed us that the full arbitral award with grounds for the decision will be issued in due course. Now, she can appeal, etc., etc. Here's my problem with this. If this hadn't happened to Shelby, her coaches wouldn't be saying shit about this. Her coaches know about the testing procedures. He said, I've learned so much. So let me get this straight. So you're trying to tell me that since she tested positive, you have now learned about all this stuff? So you're an Olympic coach, trying to coach one of the world's best runners of all time who's going to be an Olympic champion. You're trying to tell me you weren't sure about how the testing procedures worked until now when you really looked into it because something happened to your athlete? Now, the things that they're talking about here, how there was evidence presented and they heard arguments, here's the argument that was presented. Shelby said that she had gotten a pork burrito, right? She got a burrito off the back of a truck, right? And when you look up, I don't know how pork got involved in this. I don't know if she said pork originally or what's going on. But some things have come to light. First of all, she ordered a beef burrito, not a pork burrito. So therefore, the whole organ meats and pork testing positive for nandrolone goes right out the window. Now, they're saying, well, maybe they gave her pork by accident when she ordered beef. So let me get this straight. I'm not like a food connoisseur. Like, I don't do reviews for network TVs for food shows and stuff like that. But if you gave me a pork burrito instead of a beef burrito, I guarantee you I would know the difference. As soon as I bit into that shit, I would absolutely know the difference. Okay, but she ordered the beef. Okay, bottom line, the beef. Now, here's what else is pretty interesting. There are other athletes who have tested positive from similar things by eating contaminated food. Her levels were 10 times higher than the controls from those other athletes, which means that all the other athletes that they controlled her positive test to was 10 times higher than all the rest of them, which means either that was a very nandrolone-laden burrito or there's something else going on here. You know, I'm willing to bet with the way that this story's kind of falling apart that, well, originally it was pork, and then technically, if you look up the information on the nandrolone being in pork, it's the organ meat specifically, and get this, it's in non-castrated pork. If she bought that burrito off the back of a truck, even if it was pork and not beef, that pork was castrated before it was slaughtered. So therefore, listen, I'm sitting here shaking my head because everything that they tried to say is kind of falling apart really quickly. Like, almost instantly, as soon as they say one thing, something else comes out, right? Now, they also put something else. Let me get this other piece up here where they talked about the articles in PubMed, the journal article in supporting pork having nandrolone, is uncastrated wild boar meat. Wild boar meat. So unless this was like a high game, like, like some kind of random truck that had like, venison on it and elk and all kinds of random shit, I highly doubt you would have wild boar on there. I highly doubt if it was in America that it wasn't a castrated. There's too many holes in this story. And then when she did wind up getting, 10 times the amount in her blood, and they presented this to the committee when she tested positive. And the committee went and they researched everything. They heard the arguments and they said, look, this decision stands. Bottom line, if they had seen many times over people eating contaminated food, and they had those controls and they had those precedents already set by what had happened previously, and a new situation happens and they compare it to the other one, you have 10 other situations that all have similar outcomes and amounts in the body and came from similar foods or whatever the case may be. And all of a sudden this one has 10 times more. It comes from the back of a truck. She ordered one thing, they supposedly gave her another. There's so many holes in the story. I'm like, look, here's the deal. One thing I've seen throughout the years over and over again is people trying to cheat. People trying to bullshit their way out. People trying to lie their way out of being responsible for doing what they did. Not only her coaches out there saying, well, the testing procedures are too strict. So let me get this straight. You think they should back off? As it is now already, people beat those tests and people wind up competing on drugs and not getting caught, right? So you want to lighten up those tests, right? You want to make those tests so that they're not as specific, so that they're not going that deep into different metabolites, etc. You want to relieve the testing procedures just so your athlete would be able to compete. So what about all those other athletes that your athlete might compete against, right? That if you lifted some of those testing procedures and made them not as strict, would be able to get away with doping and beat your athlete. That's the dumbest fucking thing. If anything, and you really want the integrity of the sport, the Olympics, you should increase testing procedures as well as try to make them harder to beat. Not easier to beat based on your athlete eating a fucking burrito. I'm like, man, these people, like, they're all just corrupt. It just shows how selfish they are. Bottom line, if this girl did nothing wrong, I guarantee you the evidence they would have presented would have cleared her just like it's cleared people in the past. The problem is, and the news didn't report this, was that when her and her lawyers presented the evidence, it wasn't conclusive. Matter of fact, it went the opposite way, showing that she had a different case than what was going on with everybody else. So essentially, she just shot herself in the foot. So, I don't know, guys. Here's the deal. If I had to put money on it, if somebody's like, Jerry, you know what? If you had to bet on the fact that she did or didn't take the drug, what do you think? I think that she took something. I think that she may not necessarily known exactly what was going on. I think that the people that pull the strings for these athletes, like coaches, sponsors, etc., know exactly what's going on. And I do know for a fact that stuff like that has been administered by coaches and sponsors, etc., in the past without the athlete actually even really knowing what's going on. Now, that is the athlete's responsibility. If she's taking anything, eating anything, ingesting anything, injecting anything, whatever the case may be, that is her responsibility. Just because somebody tells you to do something or wants you to do something doesn't mean you have to do it. So therefore, if you choose to do it and you get caught, you need to pay the price. So I don't think that this is a situation of like, oh, there was just a mistaken, fake false positive. I don't believe that whatsoever. I believe that she took something and people are like, well, Jerry, nandrolone really wouldn't benefit. What? Nandrolone wouldn't benefit a fucking runner? What's the one thing that you know, whether it's a sprinter or a long distance runner, that nandrolone, which bodybuilders take this drug for this specific reason, would help? It lubricates the joints. It reduces inflammation in the joints. So she may not need to add muscle. She may not need to add time. But taking something like nandrolone that helps your joints will allow you to train harder and go farther and recover better. See what I'm saying? Like, the problem is people don't really just know the applications. They look at it as far as like a bodybuilding application, like, well, it's going to make her bloated, it's going to make her gain muscle, may make her slower. Well, what if it's using the right amounts where, let's be real, if you're injecting that stuff every day in small amounts and it helps with the inflammation of your joints, you'll be able to out-train your performers, the other athletes that you're performing against. If you can out-train them, and you have the genetics, then most likely you'll be able to go toe-to-toe, if not beat them. Now, if you add something else a little bit different in there that helps you increase your training, helps you increase your recovery, now you get an edge, right? You get an unfair advantage, an unfair edge, which she got caught with. So we'll see what happens. I think that it's already kind of dying down. It's quieting down already because too many things came out that didn't make any sense, and she couldn't fight back against. And the press is kind of like, it is what it is. Like, she tested positive, she got caught, it's fucking over. So her and her coaches can holler to the fucking moon and freak out all they want. But the bottom line is, what you ingest is your responsibility. And if you test positive and you're out of the Olympics, that's on you. BobStacheng@gmail.com. Leave comments down below, but don't fight. BobStacheng.com is a blog. It's on you, Shelby Bicep. And we are out.